Hi there, everyone. Now that we're done with the review of Part A, we're going to start diving into the actual Part B of the course, slow things down, and make sure we are understanding and absorbing as much information as possible. Today, we're going to review graphing lines, which is part of Chapter 5, but we're going to need to do this going forward, and it's something that you guys seem to need a little more review of. So, we're going to spend today's lesson going over graphing lines. In order to graph a line, you need one of or two of three things. You need either 2 points or 1 point and a slope. Or you need the equation of a line. So in these examples, we're given an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. We're going to see that graphing is easiest in slope-intercept form. So if you're given an equation of a line that is not in slope-intercept form, it's best to convert it to slope-intercept form, and we'll discuss that later. And remember, we can tell if it's an equation of a line if it has a y variable and an x variable in it to the first degree. So that means you just have a y and you have an x, not to any kind of power, just y and x. So both of them have to be in there in order to say that it's a line. So down here, let's go back and review what we need. We either need 2 points, we need 1 point in a line, or in a slope, okay, or we need an equation of a line. So if we look at this first equation here, y equals 3x plus 6. Remember, this last part here is the y-intercept. Okay, and if we're looking at our coordinate plane, the x-axis is across, the y-axis is to the sky. So if we're looking for y-intercept, this is the point that crosses the y-axis. So this is telling us our line crosses the y-axis at positive 6. So that's going to give us our first point. Our second point is based on the slope. So the slope is 3. And remember, slope is rise over run. Well, we have a whole number here, so how can we have a fraction? Remember, any number over itself, over 1 is itself, so we can write any integer over 1 to give us our fraction. So we're going to rise 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to just estimate this, and we're going to go over 1. So our other point is going to come from our slope there. So now we can draw a line through those 2 points. Okay, and obviously I didn't draw the straightest of lines. All right, so that line should go through both of those points. And that is how we would graph our line. The second problem here, I forgot to write the x in there, so we're going to write negative 1/3. So remember, we need to have an x and a y for it to be an equation. So here's our equation. Our y-intercept is negative 2, so that means it's going to be down here. Crosses the y-axis at negative 2. And our slope is negative 1/3. So negative means we go in the opposite direction. So our rise is actually down 1. And then we're going to go over 3. So here's our second point. We need 2 points to make a line. Again, pretend that line goes through both of those points, and that is our line for the second problem. So this is how we would find it if we're given an equation of a line. If we're given 2 points, this is the best case scenario. We just plot the points and draw a line through it. So here we have -2, 4. Remember, our coordinates are in x and y. So the -2 is going in the x direction and the 4 is going in the y direction. So we want to go to -2 in the x direction and 4 in the y direction. There's our point. And then 5, 3. Here's our second point. Now that I have 2 points, I can draw a line that is supposed to be straight, and that is our graph of a line. Lastly, we have the scenario where we're given an equation that might not look like slope-intercept form, so we have to change it. So what we want to do is we want to isolate the y. So to get the y by ourselves, we have to move everything over. So we're going to subtract 5x from both sides first to start getting the y by itself. Now we have 2y equals 15 minus 5x. Then we want to divide both sides by 2. And in this case, instead of dividing just the whole thing by 2, I'm just going to divide everything by 2. It just makes it easier. So now we have y equals 15 halves minus 5 halves x. So that color there doesn't look the greatest. So y equals 15 halves minus 5 halves x is what we end up with. Now we have something in slope-intercept form. This is attached to the x, so that's our slope, which makes this portion here our y-intercept. 15 halves is the same as saying 7.5. All right, so our y-intercept is going to be here at 7.5. Our slope says that it's down 5 and over 2. So 6.5, 5.5, 4.5, 3.5, 2.5 is down 5 over 2. Here's our other point. All right, and when we're graphing, on graph paper we can be a little more exact with rulers and everything else, or if we're doing it on the computer on a graphing system. But if we're just drawing it, just get close. Make sure we're as close as possible. And that is our lesson on graphing lines. Make sure you complete the question after the lesson and the CYU. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.